This is Eric Krakauer, and you're listening to the Seleção podcast.
Simões bending one for Torres. Eusebio. Oh my word! Have you ever seen anything like that?
Bem jogado por Simão, a passar por dois adversários. Simão a tentar oferecer o golo a Figo e a bola é golo! O golo de Figo!
Rui Costa já acreditou, vai tirar para o golo, atira, golo! 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 Cristiano Ronaldo, vai embora Cristiano Ronaldo! Bateu, golo, 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 golo! Ronaldo! Obrigado, Cristiano! Portugal vai Éder, chuta! Gol! Gol!
And we welcome you to episode number 106 of the Seleção podcast, a proud partner of Portugal.net. My name is Danny Pinto. I am your host, and we thank you guys so much for tuning in once again. Whether you are listening to us on the old-fashioned, you're like your grandfather's podcast platform, like Apple Podcasts and Spotify, or like this new-fangled way of the future called YouTube. If you're watching this very tired face from a 6.5 hour drive from LA today in order to make this show happen. Because if I'm anything, I'm a man of the people, and I heard the cries of all, Danny, where the hell's the preview episodes? And I'm like, guys, I'm in LA. You know, I've been in LA for a few of these games in the last, I would say, 6 months or so. For the Seleção, we of course we're in LA for the semifinal of the Nations League, and I was actually able to go live from there after we beat Germany 2-1. But yeah, this time around we could not get time to do the preview, but I'm glad we were able to review these last two matches against Ireland and Hungary in Portugal at the Alvalade, and we'll be doing so with our good buddy Eric Krakauer. Man, Eric Krakauer, a good guy, just a good man, and I hope he understands that. And I hope he hears that as he's waiting in the Seleção podcast green room. Of course, we are, I'd be remiss, we are broadcasting from the Padrinho José Batista podcast desk. I forgot to mention that. Still part of new part of the intro. So Padrinho, that's on me. I owe you one when I get up there. So, but yes, we are at 10 points. Still not qualified yet for the World Cup. We were about seconds away from going 4 for 4 in World Cup qualifying, and punching our ticket to North America for next summer's World Cup, whether it be playing here in the States, in Canada, or in Mexico. But that's going to have to wait until November, with the likelihood of it happening. So there's always some silver lining. I know silver lining is not the Portuguese way of things, but Portugal still should find its way playing next summer here in the United States or in Canada or in Mexico for World Cup 2026. But to discuss what happened against Ireland and against Hungary, we bring on to the stage our friend, our amigo, Eric Krakauer, who is broadcasting for the NWSL, that's the National Women's Soccer League, and is also the A club ambassador, or are you? Well, he's a club ambassador, but if you talk to the people around Charlotte, he's the club ambassador at Charlotte FC. Eric, amigo, how are we doing?
Muito bem, senhor Daniel Pinto, pai dedicado, podcaster dedicado. It's very nice to be here with you. It's been a while. Good to see you.
Yeah, man, it's been a while. You came on this podcast 99 episodes ago for the very first time back in 2018. We were discussing that off air as we were preparing. And yeah, buddy, I mean, you've been around since damn near the inception, man. So we always appreciate you coming on.
You should look at that video and see where my hairline is.
Lucky for us, there was no video in episode number 7, so you're good.
Okay. I had a majestic hairline in 2018.
Think of Uncle Jesse from Full House. Think of John Stamos just flowing.
Yes, and the word full is appropriate. And then come 2022, 2023, and whoo, it's been follicular suicide, if
Oh
you will.
no.
Yeah,
Just falling out,
yeah.
just
It's
looking
just
down at
it's just gone.
the sink, looking down the drain. It's like,
Yeah,
oh, there they
it's
go
just
again.
no, but
Later,
that's the
fellas.
thing. I don't even see the hair. I'm like, where does the hair go? It's not on my pillow. It's not in the drain. I don't understand. I think the reality is it's my follicles that are thinning. The hair is not falling out. It's just a lot thinner.
Oh, you
That's
know
what
what?
it
I
is.
can't just do if for those who are watching us on YouTube, just move your there. See, just wait,
See.
and then just do this, like your
Yeah.
Bo Derek in was it 10 or Splash, whatever it is. So
One of Splash. I think it was Splash.
it was
Yeah.
Splash, yeah.
Oh man, you just aged yourself. I aged
But well,
myself too.
look at this. I've got enough of the white hairs on the
Yeah.
old beard to let everybody know that I've aged myself. Aging yourself was today's match, as we are recording on Tuesday. Kind of took some years off the old life here, as Portugal almost at the very end were able to qualify for World Cup 2026 in North America next year. It was not meant to be today, as they end up drawing at home with Hungary 2-2. They did get the win at the end, 1-0 against Ireland. I will say this: the matches against Hungary, I would say the last handful of matches, have to be some of like the most, and just in terms of an outside footballer's view of things, have had to be some of the most fun to watch. And I would say in the last 5 years, I would say from 2016 on, right?
Yeah, fun for the neutral.
Yeah,
Nothing. I mean,
absolutely.
2016, that was painful. We almost didn't make it. It's amazing that game, that was game 3 in the group stage, if I'm
Yep.
not mistaken, in 2016. We went, and I use the word we casually, we the Portuguese. We went
Whoa.
from almost no, I say that because this is like a really silly pet peeve. But when people are talking about the clubs that they support and they're like, we were in first place, and no, bro, you were not in first place. The team that you support, but that's just me, screaming at the clouds is like the old man that I am. But as a Portuguese, I remember suffering. I forget the name of the inverted winger who was playing for Hungary in those days, who scored that brace and made Eliseu, who also happens to be the name of one of your children,
Yeah, my
got
oldest.
burned in that game. The left back wasn't a very good game for Eliseu, and I just remember suffering and sweating. That was not the case today.
Yeah, the player you're looking for is Balaz Ducek. Ducek, yeah. Scored in the 47th and the 45th. Ronaldo 50th and the 62nd. Nani in the 42nd, and it all got started with Zoltan Guerra in the 19th, a 3-3 tie on June the 22nd of 2016. But as they say, Eric, the rest is, of course, history, and that was when
Backheel goal from Ronaldo, right? I think it was a backheel
absolutely
goal in that game. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't recall if it was the first or the second one, but thing of beauty, any way you look at it. But let's talk about the Ireland game first, and I want to get your thoughts here. From the get go, and the stats obviously at the end of the game would support it. Ireland had 0 shots on goal. I believe had 2 shot attempts. Portugal had like some ungodly number of like 20 something shots, 30, and then like had about well, let me look at them. Well, whatever the case is. So on paper, this game was dominated in terms of the offensive side of things by Portugal, but it took a header by Ruben Neves at the end. A wonderful moment in front of the crowd in Portugal's first match at home since the tragic loss of Diogo Jota, who was Ruben Neves' best friend. We see the tattoo. Everything there was just, it was a beautiful moment. But in terms of the game, they found a way, they being Portugal, found a way to get through and get those 3 points. I look at that as a positive in terms of, I don't know if, and I hate going back and forth on regimes, but I made a point of it in the last episode, and I almost made a point of it in this episode had Portugal hung on to the victory. But I think in a game like that against Ireland in the previous regime with Sunch, that game is a 0-0 draw. It's a settled result. Whereas with Roberto Martínez, there's still that drive to score more and to get those 3 points to obviously get the win, but B, make sure that the result and qualifying for the World Cup is done as quickly as possible. But in terms of just trying to play against a team like Ireland in the way that they played, Eric, was there anything that Portugal could have done more, or where could the improvement have been in the attack when Ireland is playing all 11 behind their half?
Yeah, look, let's begin by giving Ireland a lot of credit because I thought that they defended really well.
Sure.
And when I look at the numbers, like XG in the game for Portugal was 3.11. And I think back to that game. Let me just 3.11, but you got to take into consideration that there was a penalty that was missed by Cristiano Ronaldo. So that's what,
and
0.7.
And an open goal opportunity that Bernard Silva just absolutely missed on his weaker foot.
Yes. I'd actually forgotten about that. Not as easy. I don't think it's as easy as people claim because I think the ball kind of bounces before he makes contact with it. It's on his weaker foot. He's running at speed towards the ball. I forget what play led to that. Did the ball? Was it a save?
So it was. Ronaldo had hit it. I think with his left from about 22 yards out. So it diagonally went from the right, the left side of the 18. Hit the far side of the post. Hit the inside of the post. Went behind the Irish goalie. And it ended up right at the feet
Bernardo Silva.
Bernardo Silva.
Yeah, I think a right footer probably puts that on frame. Whether he scores or not is something we'll never know. But I just don't remember. I guess those were the two things, right? I mean, from XG open play, if I had scrolled down, and I know that there's some people listening to this going, "Oh my God, these metrics!" And you shouldn't really look at XG. When it comes to a single game, usually XG tends to prove correct over a stretch of games, five or more. But my point is, I don't remember other than those two opportunities and then the goal, which is a brave header from Neves. I mean, that was
very brave,
a thumping, courageous header with Kelleher coming to attack the ball with his fists. And I'm surprised he didn't make contact with that. It was well read. The trajectory of the cross from Trincão, who I thought was a bad substitution in this game, and I'll get to that because I think it answers your question a little bit better because you asked me what more could have been done. I think that the substitutions were a little bit too late and some of them were incorrect. When you have a 3 center back system with all the players, essentially all 10 players defending, having one center forward on the field doesn't make sense to me. So I thought Gonçalo Ramos should have come in a lot earlier to occupy an extra center back because he made it very difficult for Cristiano. And, I've been critical of Cristiano on your podcast and on other shows that I've done, and I've caught some flack for it. There was a tweet during the Nations League final that I fired off where I wrote something along the lines of Cristiano Ronaldo should have been subbed a while ago, and 5 minutes later he scores the equalizer. Right, the ball takes a deflection and he's there at the back post, and I wrote, "Oh no, the Ronaldo hive is going to come for me," and they did. I still wouldn't have changed my stance because I felt like he was a liability against Spain in that final. Now, I'm saying that as a preface to what I'm going to say now. I think that in these two games, we saw, besides the 2 goals today, which obviously are record-setting, we are seeing a Cristiano Ronaldo who has accepted his role on this team, and that role is a presence in the box. Now, there was some frustration against Ireland, and at times you saw him drift outside of the box, which frustrated me in watching him, but I understood why he was doing it because he wasn't getting service. Today, there were times when he was perfectly positioned in the box for good service, and he never got them. I thought that Portugal was a little bit wasteful in transition, but we'll get to that. So I think that what was missing was the ability to get runners in from behind into the box, attacking the half spaces. And then in terms of substitutions, I mentioned that Trincão I didn't think was the right substitution, but he delivers a wonderful cross to Ruben Neves. I wanted to see Chico in that game. I wanted to see Chico because Chico is exactly the kind of winger that you want to attack a deep block. He loves to take players on, even though he's left dominant. He can take you down to the byline and at least force a challenge or get past the defender. His crossing may not be very good. We saw that today where he did that exact move, fake to the left, goes to the right, and ends up at the byline, but kicks the ball straight into the goalkeeper's hands.
Sure.
So I wanted to see that sort of darting, carving winger, and Trincão is not that guy. And if you are a fan of Portuguese soccer, league-wise, you will understand that with Amorim, Trincão played in a double 10. And with oh my goodness, I can't think of the name of my.
Wait, you mean? You said Trincão. Sorry, I was about to.
Trincão.
Yeah.
With Trincão, double 10 with Amorim.
Right now.
And now Rui Borges has changed the system and built it around a 4-2-3-1, where Trincão is very much the number 10, the guy in the pocket. And over the last 3-4 years, we've seen the best Trincão since the days of potential when he went to Barcelona and then ends up at Wolves. And so bringing him in as a winger against the deep block, for me, only to do what Portugal had been doing ad nauseum, which was cross the ball, it just seemed like a poor decision from Martinez in terms of his substitutions. And I thought his substitutions again today left a lot to be desired. I know that was very long-winded, by the way.
No, you're good. But here's the thing. It's like, and I'm going to share, and I'm going to share a tweet that I received. And it's not, and I'm not making fun of this person at all. This is just a tweet that I received. So I'm okay, maybe not. Well, there it is. So from Azorian Alchemy, why Ruben Neves? Palinha is much better at just about everything except long range passing, but we have plenty of others for that. And again, it goes to what you're saying, like the substitution doesn't make sense at the time, but yet Ruben Neves is the one that scored the goal. I don't want to compare it to, did we think Eder was going to be the hero that he was on that final in 2016?
Right.
Of course not. Did we think Ruben Neves coming off the bench was going to be the guy who was going to put us up top? Of course not. People put themselves in positions sometimes. It's not so much I'm not making fun of the tweet. It's just like in the moment we're like, God, that doesn't make any sense. And then like a guy that doesn't make sense sometimes is the guy that
pulls it off. Not off the bench. He started both games.
I'm sorry. You're right. You're right.
Because I remember, and that gent Azul Suriano, I think is the
Azorian Alchemy. The at is Azorian. Yeah, Azorian.
So he tweets me, and I usually respond to his tweets, and he tweeted the question, why Neves and not Vitinha? Why Vitinha, not Neves, when it came to the substitution? And my response was, well, there's another game, and I think that Vitinha has been doing a lot more running for PSG than Ruben Neves has in Saudi Arabia. I mean, that's just me guessing, right?
Sure.
And then it turns out I didn't think I thought he had a pretty decent game against Ireland, but I do think that the point stands that perhaps in that situation, I don't think Palinha was the answer, but a more forward-minded player. Maybe a Trincão in that situation, but in the central space.
Yeah, we're talking with Eric Krakauer here as we look back at the Ireland and Hungary matches in October's 2026 World Cup qualifying window. Portugal up in Group F. Only need one more point to get to North America next summer. matches next month. 2 more matches next month. 1 home, 1 away. 1 home to Armenia and 1 away to Ireland. I believe the Ireland game is first away, and I believe we close things
Ireland is
out.
first, yeah.
We close things at home against Armenia. So let's head to before we head to Hungary in earnest. Is there anything else on the Ireland match that you want to kind of go over?
Not necessarily. Not necessarily. I think that Roberto Martínez watches that game over, hopefully realizes that the substitutions didn't work, and that's maybe why we didn't see Trincão in this game. Not that I'm blaming Trincão for anything. I just didn't think that in the position.
You think he was misused?
He was misused. Exactly that. He was misused. And funny enough, I thought that he could have been a factor today, not on the wing. But I think that Roberto Martínez watches that game and thinks, okay, the one thing we need here against a deep block is we need to be able to occupy more spaces in the attacking third. And what I mean by that, I'll go to Pep Guardiola. Pep Guardiola always occupied the 5 lanes on the field with the player. So you take the wings, the half spaces, and the central space. And we saw that today being done more often than not by Semedo and Nuno Mendes. So in fact, the Portuguese equalizer is born from that situation. I think Vitinha plays the ball into the half space to Semedo, and Nelson Semedo then hits a ball across the 6, and Ronaldo is where he's supposed to be, just like he is for the other goal. So I think
it was a great ball by Nelson Smith.
It is a really good ball, and it's a good ball from Vitinha, and those spaces were the ones that were not properly occupied against Ireland. So that's my point. Again, it's also different because 3 center backs as opposed to 2, so there are more of those holes to occupy.
Before we get into the Hungary game, what do you make of Martinez's continued tinkering with the starting 11? I know that Ignacio was sent home, as well as Rafael Leão. So obviously those guys who played in against Ireland are not available today. But have Renato Veiga in today. They're playing a back 4, traditional back 4. You're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't. If you don't tinker and results get stale, people ask for it to change. If you are tinkering a lot and yet the results are actually, for the most part, the last year or so, and then we had obviously a great summer and everything. You continue to tinker, and it's like, why don't we just stick with something that works? Where do you fall on the tinkering of Roberto, the continuous tinkering of Roberto Martínez?
I don't really have a problem with it if it makes sense. I mean, if he's starting João Neves as a right back against Spain in the Nations League final, then I have an issue. And to do that 2 games in a row, because he did it against Germany as well,
yes,
and then had to change. He had to make a tactical adjustment, and yet does exactly the same thing against Spain, and isolates João Neves, who's a fantastic player and multifaceted, versatile, but not a right back, but isolates him against Williams, not Iñaki Williams. Nico, not Iñaki. Nico Williams. And I just thought, my goodness, we're going to get killed. And it actually came to pass where Nico Williams, in the first 20 minutes or so, was picking on João Neves. The entire Spanish national team was, because they realized that this was an Achilles. And fortunately, nothing really came out of it. But when it comes to decisions like that, yes, it concerns me. But insofar as other positions are concerned, and he's putting players in the right place or plugging the right holes, then I don't really have a problem, because we have skated through qualifying campaigns. And I think in many ways, the fact that we have skated through campaigns is actually papered over some cracks.
Yeah, I agree with you. This is the first game, this Hungary match. This result, this 2-2 draw, is the first qualifying match for Portugal in either European or World Cup qualifying that has not resulted in a win for Roberto Martínez. Of course, we all remember the historic 10-0 in the European qualification, and they had started 3-0 in this World Cup qualification. So the first, as if you want to say blemish on the Roberto Martínez World Cup qualifying record was today's match, as we are recording on Tuesday here. But the match itself got started kind of shell shocked. The Hungary goal coming in the 8th minute in a kind of the definition of a man against a boy in terms of height for on that Hungary header off the corner kick as Attila Zalai, and I don't have his height, but he's about I may be exaggerating a little bit. I think he might be like 7'4", and poor little Bernard Silva just doing his best. But yeah, go ahead.
It's difficult sometimes when you watch a game and your emotions are involved, as they were,
Sure.
And then I also had my 4-year-old son, like, is Portugal still winning? Is Portugal still? Yes.
Attaboy, Benny.
Yeah,
buddy.
Yeah, Benny was just like, all over me and asking questions and, doing his thing. He should have been napping, but I decided not to nap him, and we all paid the price later.
You're good.
You know
good,
this
Dad.
well. And any parent will know what I'm talking about. So he was, like, he was short-circuiting essentially. And so I wasn't able to, I was watching it and analyzing it, but I was like, did I miss something with my initial sort of analysis? So I watched the extended highlights, and I was looking at that play in particular in the beginning, and I replayed it like 10 times. And so it's zonal marking. Nuno Mendes is the spare man. And essentially what Bernardo is doing there, he's not there to contest for an aerial ball with Shalai. He's there to to block him, essentially. And then the spare man, Nuno Mendes, attacks the ball. But what happens is Diogo Costa comes out for the ball. Mendes, I think, expects him to make contact with the ball. And so he should if he's coming out the way he does. It was a good delivery. Take nothing away from the delivery.
It was a great ball.
And then Nuno Mendes turns his head, doesn't quite jump the right way, and then poor Bernardo Silva is left with Shalai just easily leaping over him. And I guess the criticism is, well, why do it that way? But it's not an unusual tactic. In fact, it's very often you'll see smaller guys on bigger guys just to be a perturbance,
Yeah, almost a nuisance.
Right, and it works many times. But that was a couple of errors that ultimately cost the goal. And set pieces, Portugal looked very vulnerable to aerial attacks throughout the game. We'll talk about Vega in a little bit, I'm sure. But it was remarkable how vulnerable and fragile they looked.
They've been that way since good old number 3 with a similar hairline as yours, but has been gone.
His hairline may be better.
Well, it might be. We talked about the equalizer here with Ronaldo in the 22nd minute off of a beautiful cross in the area.
Can I just add something to that goal, by the way? Because we talked about Nelson Semedo. All 10 Portuguese players were in the attacking third. What is considered the attacking third? It's remarkable. If you look at that play, if one of I saw it late and I never responded, and I apologize, but I think he'll probably be listening. I can't think of his name right now. Let me see if I can find it very quickly.
They're
Luciano.
all listening.
El Feltrin 98 on Twitter. Who is I believe he's a Porto fan, or maybe Sporting, but a Porto fan and Portugal fan. And he asked me, how do you attack a deep block? And I'm not a coach. I coached an under 18 team, but I'm certainly not an expert. How did I do?
Yeah,
I did win a championship.
Look at this guy. See?
Don't ask me what that championship was. It was in New York. I don't know if it's in New York State or whatever, but yes, I did win.
I don't know, New York, the biggest city in the United States of America, and you're winning championships.
No, it wasn't New York City. It was bigger than that. It was bigger than that. It was bigger than that. I got
You're the
lucky. It was
best,
my
man.
first. It was my first year. I came in third my second year. But the point is, there are far smarter people than me, and I'm not especially smart, who coach, have all their licenses, and have tried to figure out how to cut through deep block. I already mentioned one way, which is you occupy every lane in the attacking third. That's one thing. You want deep runners as well. But the other thing is rest defense. How good is your rest defense? So essentially, what I thought Portugal did rather poorly was that when Ireland won the ball back and sometimes tried to play out, Ireland just were terrible in playing out. I don't think Portugal's rest defense was particularly good at winning back the ball. And when they did, I didn't think they were incisive enough. And what you saw in that goal, that equalizer from Cristiano Ronaldo, was really good Portugal rest defense. In fact, that goal is it's a recirculation of possession, which happens because they win the ball back when Hungary clears it. Something like that. And I just thought, wow, every single player, just look at where Diaz and Vega are on that play.
Yeah, we get that equalizer in the 22nd minute, and then shortly there, well, not shortly, about right before the half, Cristiano Ronaldo gets another one. The delivery coming from the other side. Nunes and him have connected on numerous goals here in the last 6 months or so. They find themselves connecting once again as Ronaldo gets another one and puts him as the all-time leader in goals scored. Well, was it the first one or the second one? I think it was the first one that got him the record.
The first one sets the record.
Sets the record, and then he continues to be the record setter that he is with that second one, and puts Portugal up 2-1 at the half. And there was two other opportunities in the second half. One by Ruben Dias from distance, hit the bar. Who was it? It was Bruno Fernandes also hit the bar in the second half.
It was saved first. It was
yes.
It's a big save, and it goes off the post. But can we just backtrack,
buddy? We can do anything you want.
Just thank you. It's just that there are a few plays that I want to mention. I also want to highlight something, that the guy in second place on that list is Carlos Pescadito Ruiz, who was an MVP in MLS with the Galaxy. He's a friend of mine. I worked with him at beIN Sports, and I worked with him in MLS. And he is such a star in Guatemala. I mean, he is. Just a quick story on him. We both did a DC game, not this season, last season, and he and I had said, let's go get some drinks after this, and we end up at a bar in Washington D.C., which has a big Central American community. The biggest one is El Salvador, but we end up in this bar, and a lot of the bar staff, like not the two bartenders, but a lot of the wait staff and the people in the kitchen were from Guatemala, and one of them spotted him. And we were supposed to go for some drinks, but once he got spotted, they were like, "Are you Carlos Pescadito Ruiz?" And he goes, "Yes." And they're like, "I don't believe you." They couldn't believe that they were in his presence, so they actually made him pull out his ID to show him. And after that, Danny, let me tell you, man, what was supposed to be a night of 2 drinks became a night of too much mezcal and tequila.
Ooh, boy.
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. But it was just the joy in the faces of these Guatemalan dudes who were super hospitable and welcoming, and there was just, it's I don't know about you, but I don't really have idols. I don't have idols. I grew up, idolizing as a kid. I idolized Luis Figo and Rui Costa. I never admitted the Rui Costa part because he was a Benfiquista, but I used to watch every.
This is my guy, Joe Montana.
Joe Montana.
That was my first one.
Like a real Tuga, like a real Portuguese guy. You like Joe Montana?
Yeah, some great Italian American. Yeah, I love it.
Yeah, and so I've never been in a situation in my life where I've, I would have, if I'd been in the same exact place as Luis Figo as a kid, I would have gone mad. But that was it, and I've been around a lot of soccer players and other people, some actors and whatever, and I'm just not starstruck at all. And so it was amazing to me to see the joy in the faces of these people. And it was just a reminder of what Carlos Ruiz was and continues to be to that country. And then you look at that list, and I posted a story, tagging him, it's incredible. You see Cristiano Ronaldo, you see Messi, and sandwiched in between those two guys is Pescadito Ruiz. Tremendous. But that was just something on the side. I do want to mention that before the Cristiano Ronaldo second goal, Hungary has two big chances. Another one from a corner, which with Bola hits it just wide through a crouch. He's outside the 18. It was another lovely delivery by Szoboszlai, who's one of my favorite players in world football. Love him. So extremely good looking, great hairline, seems like a lovely guy as well. I actually, funny enough, I have a Szoboszlai story as well. This is becoming like the memory.
Listening to the Seleção podcast hosted by Eric Krakauer, featuring Danny Pinto.
Everybody must be so annoyed listening to this, but
I love it, dude. I love
when
it.
we went through the pandemic, and you and I were talking off air about the pandemic and coming on your podcast, and the first game I did when games were coming back, in fact, it was one of the very first games played after the break, was the Austrian Cup final, and it was Red Bull Salzburg against a second division team. I forget who they were. And Szoboszlai, who I knew very little about, scored just a wicked free kick. Wicked. When I was like, oh my God, how does this guy hit that sort of ball? And then you saw the goal he scored against Arsenal, not too dissimilar. Just a fantastic player. He was fantastic again, scored the equalizer. So there was that opportunity. And then there was another one as the ball is worked down the right-hand side. And who was it? And another Shalai, it's like a very common Hungarian name, hits a shot in the box. So the ball comes in from the right side, the cross. It's a quick play. It's a switch from Shalai, the center back who scored. He hits it to the right, to their right winger. Neto is not covering that space properly. Min just tucked in with one of the center forwards. And it's a first-time cross, and he hits it, but he doesn't make good contact, and it goes straight to Diogo Costa. And the reason I bring this up is every time the ball went wide and there was a delivery, Portugal suffered in some way.
Yeah, we might as well get to it now because let's get to the equalizer because the name Renato Veiga is going to appear here. Not sure what he was doing on. Oh no! Was it no? It was not on the equalizer. He was
on the winning goal, on the equalizer. No, the Hungarian equalizer.
No, he was okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
He was caught flat-footed. I forget. I believe it was Nelson Smith who was on the back end. Szoboszlai was open, but that could have been anyone because, he in essence he decided to go to the central attacker and leaving the player behind him alone. It was a comedy of errors, I think, defensively on that play that led to that goal, and it was, and you could see the despondence of the reaction that Portugal had. All that to say is this: I mentioned that in the last episode that we had with Matthew Marshall, I had done some research, and I had seen that in Fernandes' tenure, I believe Portugal had come back from being down 6 times out of 100 and some odd games. Roberto Martínez's tenure, they've already done it. They've done it 4 times, and 3 out of the last 4 prior to these 2 qualifiers. And had they hung on to this lead that they had fought back to get, it would have been 4 out of their last 6. So you could look at it 2 ways. One, the offense is never a problem is not a problem per se for this Portuguese national team at the moment. The fact that we have to come back from multiple games now, I believe, is where the issue is starting to kind of show itself. And I don't know if I said this at the beginning of the episode or when we were talking off air, but I don't think we are as sure of this team being able to close out an opponent as we have been in maybe years past, because I don't think that the quality of defending is as good as it may have been when Pep was patrolling that middle. And it's not just him; he's not the end all be all, but his presence in the middle and in quarterbacking that defense, we're missing that right now. And Ruben Dias could be as good as he is and playing at Manchester City for as long as he has, but there's still a lot of question marks as to who's standing next to him. And let's be fair, as good as Nunes is on both sides of the ball, that other side of the field can get attacked really well. And if you don't have a partner for Ruben Dias, a consistent partner for Ruben Dias, there's a lot of question marks in this back four, back five, however, or back three, however you want to look at it. And that's the biggest concern, I think, for this national team at the moment.
Look, I think there are a few problems, and I'll use this game as sort of a microcosm of those problems. Yes, you're missing Pep. Who wouldn't? Arguably, I would say one of the top 5 center backs of all time.
He's so underrated, man. People are going to look at him as just like, oh, it's red card this and red card. It's like,
yeah, but
dude,
you know what's amazing about
he had picked up a red card in like 8-9 years.
I mean, even at Real Madrid, the narrative was that he was the one who lacked discipline, but Sergio Ramos used to get a lot more red cards than Pep. So,
yeah, but a lot more praise at the end because he was Spanish. Yeah,
I mean, but Sergio Ramos to me, you know, I love Sergio Ramos as a player.
If Pep is top 5, is Sergio Ramos in that top 4?
I'm not necessarily saying that he's a better defender than Pep. Maybe Pep is a better defender than Sergio Ramos, but overall, as a complete player, I would say that Sergio Ramos is a better player overall. Just one of the and I was actually really happy to and we're going on all sorts of digressions, but this is a quick one. One of the things. Thierry Henry, who's now a pundit on CBS, one of the things that he said on a podcast was, there are a lot of people who are soccer fans who don't realize what some of the hardest things to do in a game are. And one of those is hitting a 30-yard, 30-meter, perfectly placed ball to hit you to switch the flank and hit your teammate in stride. Okay? That's hard enough to do on your dominant foot. Sergio Ramos could do it on both. Sure. Without any difficulty, right? So he, as a ball player, he was exceptional and an exceptional defender as well. Pep was an exceptional defender and an incredible leader on this team. He had the garra, and what that did was it allowed Ruben Dias to be Ruben Dias. And sometimes, and I was watching today, Ruben Dias is a little bit of a shit stirrer. Right? He had a few situations in this game. And yes, that's become a little bit of his persona, but he's not really, he's a pretty boy. He's not a Pep kind of warrior. If I'm being stared down by Ruben Dias, I'm not scared. If I'm being stared down by Pep, I might tinkle in my pants, So I feel that Portugal lacks that. He doesn't only lack his defensive presence, but also the steeliness, the dark alley kind of presence. So that's one thing that I wanted to touch on. Okay. Now the other, it is clear to me that Vega at the minute is not a starting center back for Portugal for a variety of reasons. He does not look like a dominant center back in the air. Just simply doesn't. He was involved in 5 duels. He won 2 of them. There was another situation in the second half where he's marking Szoboszlai in the box, and Szoboszlai gets a free header because he completely mistimes or misjudges the trajectory of the ball. That equalizer is actually also born from a long Hungarian ball. Hungary resorted to Route 1 football because they could. What they did is they put, I forget the name of the forward right now, Varga. They put Varga on Vega. and he wins the ball. He heads it down. That allows Hungarian players to get into the attacking third. They move the ball to the right-hand side, and then the dominoes start falling. Why do the dominoes start falling? Because Vega at that point is beaten in the air. He has to backtrack as the ball is on the right, and then he doesn't mark a player in the box. What he does is he tries to shadow Nelson Semedo, and so he's a little bit too wide. beIN does the same thing. If you look at beIN and Nelson Semedo, beIN and Vega are looking at the ball as Nelson Semedo is trying to keep the ball from, not Nelson Semedo, what's the name of it? Tavares. It was Tavares. Tavares is trying to close down the ball, and they're so close to Tavares that neither of them realizes that there's a runner behind them. And because there's a runner behind them, Nelson Semedo has to pinch further in the middle,
Yes.
and that leaves the space behind them, and Chico is too far. Now, we can have a discussion whether Chico should by that point have been further downfield and been there to help. That's a different discussion. But everything starts going downhill, or the dominoes start to fall when Vega isn't able to contest that header. And he was just a liability for those aerial balls. Now, if you look at the guy that they were missing, which was Gonçalo Inácio contested 8 aerials against Ireland. No slouches in the air. He won 6 of them. So there's a different presence there. And both these players are good on the ball, but I think that Inácio is a lot more composed in possession and building out of the back. Now, I'm not suggesting that Gonçalo Inácio is a stalwart in the Portuguese defense, but right now, I think he is the credible option to pair up with Ruben Dias. But here's another point. And again, I'm going for a very long time. And again, I apologize to your listeners.
You're good.
The other issue that was very visible today, and it's interesting because at one point, because of the distractions of my son and everything, I couldn't quite understand what was happening. I was like, why was Portugal defending so well for most of the first half, and then in the second half found themselves in real trouble? Very simple. Portugal's comfortable defending when they have possession. And the players that they had in the first half, Vitinha, Ruben Neves, Bernardo Silva, Bruno Fernandes, these guys were all able to maintain possession, to execute really good rest defense. And the Hungarians, when they were knocking the ball about, I'm not suggesting that they threatened all the time, but they were able to keep the ball away from the Hungarians. When the substitutions were made in the second half, who does he bring in? João Félix, Chico Conceição, and beIN. I love beIN as a defensive presence. Who wouldn't? But he's not the guy who's going to be knocking the ball about and possessing the ball well. Not that he can't do it. That's just not his forte, right?
He's your Pep in the midfield, whereas Ruben Neves is more your Sergio Ramos.
Exactly. Then you have Bernardo Silva, who comes into a more central space. And by the way, he's been criticized in this game. I think he actually had a very good game. But you now have João Félix, which lost a little bit of the width balance. And you have Chico Conceição, players whose strong suits are being creative with the ball, right? A little bit of flair. Well, flair players, creative players, aren't necessarily concerned with possessing the ball and securing possession. Do you know what I mean? So all of a sudden, you had a very different Portugal in possession, one that didn't take care of the ball as well. And what we have learned from Portugal is they are not good right now under Roberto Martínez defending without the ball there.
The fact that we have, I agree with what you're saying about Renato Vega. I don't think we've seen enough from Antonio Silva. I think anytime he puts on a Portugal shirt right now, we go back to the game against Georgia at the Euros. I still think there's a lot of people who are nervous about that. I think himself included. So I do think, based on attrition almost, that Gonçalo Inácio is the guy that should be playing next to Ruben Dias, which, in my opinion, tells me that we need to play that traditional back four with Noon Minge on the left and either Smedu or Dalot, or hopefully he gets back after having just a great September qualifying campaign in João Cancelo. Again, another guy who is more offensive than defensive. But for me, Eric, I think it's just one of those things where and maybe this is where I think the continuous tinkering of the lineup, I think can kind of wear on the fans and myself included is, and again, we don't have Ignacio in this game because he picked up a knock in the Ireland game. I think Vega came in for him in the second half. But if we don't have that stability in the back, I think that leaves everybody a little nervous going forward when you're not playing the likes of Ireland and Hungary, respectively, but you're playing, you're going to be playing a higher echelon of team in the knockout stages of the World Cup with all the hopes and dreams of this team going far next summer. The fact that we haven't yet solidified that back line, I'll just call it the back line, is very troublesome, because I think everywhere else, the attack, the midfield, goalkeeping, I think we're in a very, very good spot. It's the question marks on the defensive side of things. Playing defense is where right now is the biggest question mark and the biggest nervous part for me.
Yeah, but I don't think you can isolate the defense in this situation. I look, ultimately it's about cohesion, right?
Sure.
Very often there's a focus on the defense without paying attention to what's happening just in front of them. And so I think the problem here is, and I go back to the point that I was making about Portugal defending well in possession, having the ball and keeping it away. When you're that sort of team, what it does is a good team that can defend with the ball switches positions. There's a lot of positional interchanges between players. So at times you'll see a center mid like Ruben Neves on the right, a Bruno Fernandes on the left, a Bernardo Silva in the middle. And what that does is, if there is an errant pass, if the play breaks down, you are now vulnerable in transition. And then you're putting a tremendous amount of pressure on your back line, especially because when you're also defending in possession, you are asking your defenders, mostly your fullbacks, to take up positions on the field that makes it hard for them to then be exactly where they need to be defensively. So take Minge and Nelson today, Nelson Smith. Very often they were in the half spaces. So when Pedro Neto was playing on left, Nuno Minge would tuck in. In fact, the second goal for Portugal comes in one of those plays where the ball recirculates again because the rest defense is so good, because they've plugged up so many of those spaces in the attacking third. Neto gets the ball on the left, plays it to Vitinha. Vitinha, I think, backheels it to Minge. Minge plays it to somebody else, and it comes back to Minge, and he hits the cross. And there's a defensive lapse from Hungary, because I think Shalai is trying to play an offside line, and Ronaldo benefits from that, right? He's ghosting in. But it's a wonderful cross. Take nothing away, and an exceptional finish. But the point that I'm saying here is, look at where Nuno Minge is positioned. If by chance that play breaks down and Hungary can break out, he's going to have to, try and stop the ball wherever it is. And in many ways, that's exactly what's asked from a player who is being asked to be in a slightly different position, if that makes sense. I feel like it's a circuitous argument that I'm making here. So overall, you become vulnerable in transition when you defend well with the ball in possession and you make a mistake. And I think that that's the biggest issue that Portugal is going to have to deal with, because they're a very fluid team in possession. And when you lose the ball and you're backtracking towards your own goal, It's about putting out fires as opposed to let's get back into our into our rigid defensive posture. And we saw that today over and over. How you sort of make up for that, for me, is difficult to say. Is difficult to say because I think one of the things that makes Portugal so good is because they're so good in possession and because of that fluidity.
Sure.
And so if you take that away and you bring beIN in, and I've always been an advocate for bringing beIN in, you lose some of that fluidity on the ball. So it's like, pick your poison. What is it exactly that you want to do? So we're always going to see a certain defensive vulnerability. And when you don't have an athletic freak like Pep to just gallop towards the ball and beat people on a one-on-one defensively, then you're just going to take risks.
Do you think going back to my point, and I see and I hear everything that you're saying. But going back to my point, the fact that there isn't a stability that has been built in the back end, when you have players that when you're asking players from the midfield to help. I mean, this is soccer 101. Midfielders are going to run the most out of all the players because they have to be in the attack and also have to help in the defense. But if the back line isn't established, and we have players that maybe have not played enough together, do you think that and again, we're talking about, zonal marking here for the most part. Are we not? There's a feel also to zonal marking. It's like you understand the area where you could be, but there's also a feel because, I know that Ruben's going to go here on a ball that might be coming out this way, so I should tuck in more, or Inácio could be going out, whatever the case is. So there is a feel to it.
It's predictability, right?
Yeah.
I expect this player to do this.
Yeah. So I think the fact that there is not that cohesion yet in the back, I think that, again, it's not just and I agree with you, it's not just the back line. It's a combination of everyone doing their part, but I still think that the fact that we don't have an established back line yet can lead to some issues going forward. And I guess I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah, I think so. And you brought up Dalot. And I think that the reason Dalot, he was on the bench today, right? I'm pretty sure he was.
Let me look. I believe
he was. Yeah, I'm looking at it right now. One of the reasons I think that Nelson was preferred to Dalot in this game was exactly because of what we saw against Ireland, which was an inability to break down a deep block. And so Nelson Semedo is a much better player. It's strange because Dalot is actually very technically gifted, but on the one-on-one, the ability to carve up a little bit of space with a shake of the hip, a drop of the shoulder. Nelson Semedo, even when he was coming up at Benfica, that's what he did well. At Benfica, when he was the right back, Benfica had so much possession that you didn't really notice the defensive lapses very often. And that's what happens when you play for a dominant team. I think he's, you don't play in the Premier League and you're not a starting right back or right wing back in the Premier League. I know now he's in Turkey, but if you're not a good defender, and he's become a good defender, but in this game, his inclusion in the 11 for me was because of what he was able to do, what he is able to do on the ball, and we saw it on the goal. And I'm not sure that Dalot could do that. And I'm a big fan of Dalot, and I think he gets a lot of shit for no reason. There's inconsistencies in his performance. The guy that was missed today was Cancelo, 100%. Sure. But I thought Nelson played well enough to mitigate Cancelo's option. How often during these qualifiers and the qualifiers for the Euro, how often was Cancelo the X factor?
Oh, yeah.
Right. So that just shows that Roberto Martínez has the right intention in bringing in Nelson Semedo. He understands that the fullbacks and the underlap, all these things are going to be crucial in order to break what he thought was going to be a deep Hungarian side. But Hungary actually didn't. They weren't they didn't retreat as much as I thought they would, and they were a little bit more audacious than I expected them to be.
So we are sitting here now, 10 points out of 4 matches, 3 wins, 1 draw. The draw obviously happening today against Hungary. According to the math, Portugal just needs 1 point to get through to the World Cup as the group winners of Group F. November the 13th, it's a Thursday. They are away to the Republic of Ireland, and then on Sunday, an early game on Sunday, a game that hopefully does not mean anything, but an early game on Sunday morning on the 16th. 9 a.m. for you, Eric. 6 a.m. for us here in California. So hopefully that game is just, for me, I wake up to a second half of a non-essential game here. But all that to say is this: let's just go with the hypothetical, and I'll ask you what you would do, and then I'll ask you what Roberto Martínez, or what you think Roberto Martínez would do. Let's say we get the 12 points, we're already in. November, for all intents and purposes, becomes 2 friendlies. We know we have friendlies in North America next in March. One in Atlanta against the United States, one in Mexico against Mexico.
Are those confirmed?
Those are not confirmed, but they are as solid as I don't have much of any inside information. But from what I heard, I would say we're at the to use an American football term, we're at the 5-yard line.
Okay.
For the Atlanta game, and I think the Mexico game is pretty much as good as ready to go. So, so you have friendlies in March. You're obviously going to have your lead up friendlies against teams that are similar to who you're going to have in the group. Eric Krakauer, if you are no longer coaching your under 18 side, but coaching Portugal in November with qualification already in the bag, would you bring up players who you want to see, or would you go for cohesion? And what do you think Roberto Martínez would have done in the same situation?
2 things. One, we still need to talk about Cristiano Ronaldo. Okay, so
We're almost there.
We'll get there. Let's not forget about that, because I've got some stuff to say about that, and you know why. As for your question, I think if you're going to look at some other players, I think what you do is there are 3 or 4 players maybe. You look to see, let's say you're going to take 26 players to the World Cup, okay? You're settled on 20. You essentially know who your starters are going to be for the most part. Who are going to be your ancillary players? Is Pedro Gonçalves Spot one of your guys? I would say that he has started this season really well, so deserves a look in. He foi convocado, so I think you need to try him out a little bit more. Mateus Nunes, I think, is an interesting player. What's his situation? He's been turned into a right back. I thought that was never going to work, but he's done fairly well this season with Manchester City. So there are some pieces here that I think you can look at. Who's going to be a third center forward if we take a third center forward? Is it just going to be Gonçalo Ramos and Cristiano Ronaldo? Who else is it going to be? Is it Fabio Silva? Is he one of the guys? Doesn't seem like he's playing a lot right now. So I think
could you see somebody from the under 21s?
Kenda, Amora. Those guys, yes. The only issue with those guys is they're vying for positions against arguably the most important players on the Portuguese national team,
sure.
Right? So Kenda is not going to play as a inverted Ruben Amorim wingback for the Portuguese national team. He's going to be a winger, but who drops out? But I would 100% take Kenda to World Cup. I mean, the guy's a phenom. I haven't been this excited about a Portuguese national since Quaresma. I noticed I didn't say Cristiano Ronaldo. It was after Quaresma. I was more excited about Quaresma.
I understand.
I remember when he was coming through, and I was watching him going, "Who is this kid?"
It's wild. It's wild that and it wasn't a long time, but that Sporting had on one side Cristiano Ronaldo, and on the other side they had Ricardo Quaresma.
Yeah,
that's wild.
It's insane. So I think there's some of these ancillary guys that I'd like to see. So I think it's a mixture of both. It's a mixture of let's let's try and create more cohesion. The guys that we know are absolutely going to start are going to get more minutes in the positions that they're supposed to. And then you pull them off and you see where these other guys can fit in. And I think part of this conversation is, what role is Gonçalo Ramos going to have on this team? What is it that we're going to expect from Cristiano Ronaldo? Because this is a really important conversation that still needs to be had. He scored 2 goals today. I gave him credit at the beginning of this podcast saying he seems to have accepted that this guy is going to be a box presence. We don't want him, although his first touches on the ball, was it today or against Ireland, where he's doing the thing on the ball? He's putting his foot like this. He's like shaking his tail.
He's still,
like
he still thinks he's playing for Sir Alex.
I mean, even before that, like that's what he was doing against Manchester United for Sporting in that when they opened Alvalade. And when he did that, I was like, oh, stop it. But the crowd loved it. They loved it because they love Cristiano Ronaldo. I don't want that from him.
He's still a showman, and he
is a showman. But it scares me when he does that.
I want you to get to your point on CR7, but I want to rehash the point that I had made about him in the last episode. There seems, like you said, that there's an acceptance in his role right now with the national team. I think that in that acceptance, Eric, I think there has been a weight that's been lifted when he puts on that shirt. It's almost like there's a joy that has been reignited, refulfilled in him. Because there was frustration in these matches because of how close they were, and the opportunities not going his way. When he hits the post one time, he gets the PK save, but there does seem to be a lack of, like, the elephant is not on his back anymore, and I think that's part of the reason too that I think he's been able to accept his role maybe as well as you feel that he has, because I think that he trusts his team to not have to be the only one that does something. Mm-hmm. And I think that, unfortunately, for all of us, that's come way too late in his national team career. But who's to say that it doesn't mean that who's to say it doesn't make them a favorite and have a run of all runs next summer in the World Cup. I mean, I'd love to think of that, because obviously, I mean, we keep thinking that tournament after tournament, this is the last one, this is the last one, this is the last one. I'd like to think that this World Cup is his last one with the Portugal shirt, but I don't think that he's ever had a better opportunity, given now his acceptance and I think just the pressure of being the only one. That's where I'm coming off of it right now, because the last big tournament, or he didn't score in the Euros. Not a great tournament. I still think he was kind of not there yet. For whatever reason, I think he's there now. And maybe it's an acceptance thing too, where it's like, I know this is it. I can't do it on my own anymore. And maybe he realized that maybe too late. But I don't know. There's just something about the way he's playing right now in the Portugal shirt that tells me that he is playing with less pressure, more acceptance, and maybe a little bit more joy than maybe he's had in a long time. That's where I'm coming from.
Yeah. You know what? I hadn't thought about it that way. And I think that there may be some truth in that. 100%. Can I be the spoiler now?
Sure. Listen, man. Listen, I'm not listen, if people know this, I've criticized that dude.
No, I know you did. I don't.
I don't want you to think that you're like the only one that, like, you're never the. And I don't jump on it just so that you're not. I mean, listen, we all have our opinions on him, and I mean, he is the bolt of lightning that has hit again and again and again, in good times and in bad times. Like, he is the needle mover. He is the straw that stirs the drink. So he is the one that's going to get criticized and praised the most. It's what happens when you're one of the greatest players of all time. But I will digress,
100%.
and I leave the bashing you're about to do right now.
I'm not going to bash. I'm not going to bash.
I know you're not.
Because I've developed a reputation among mostly Portuguese Americans of being a Ronaldo basher, and I'm not. I've been delighted with how he's been playing recently, and how fundamental he's been to the attacking plays, and just how efficient he's been in putting his opportunities away, which is what he's always done throughout his career, but wasn't doing as much recently for the Portuguese national team unless he was playing against lesser teams. And this is where I want to take this discussion. And no, I'm not going to be the guy who compares Messi scoring goals in World Cup qualifiers against the Brazils and the Colombias and the Uruguays versus Portugal playing against Luxembourg and all that. I'm not going to do that, because I think that's an unfair argument, and sometimes there's an over evaluation of the teams that Messi's playing. And the only reason I bring that guy's name up is only because this is a discussion about whom Portugal is Ronaldo is scoring against. But my thing is not the scoring. This is a very weak group. This Ireland team is horrendous. Armenia, arguably the second best side in this group, and they're not very good. Hungary, we made them look today like a pretty good team. They are not. Okay, they're not a bad team, but this is not a team that Portugal should really struggle against. And Portugal struggled at times today. There is a sliding doors moment in this game where Portugal could have lost. Okay, and I know Ruben Dias hits the crossbar from 25, 30 yards out, and I know Bruno Fernandes has his shot saved. But my question is, when Portugal plays teams like Spain, and I know if you're listening, you're going, but he scored against Spain in the Nations League final, and we won on penalties. Yes, we did. Ronaldo was a liability in that game. He was a defensive liability. He couldn't press, and he couldn't close down players well enough. And Spain ran all over us far too many times in that game because, again, we can't defend without the ball. The only time we looked good in that game, in that final, was when we had possession of the ball. But Spain was superior, and we got lucky. And you had some incredible performances like Nuno Mendes essentially putting Lamine Yamal in his pocket. But the point that I'm making is, when you are playing a top team, and Portugal very often against top teams, the first possession to those top teams, even though Portugal is a very good team in possession. Have you noticed that? That happens time and time again.
Yeah, it goes back. It's like the DNA part of Portugal has always been the counterattack.
Yeah, and also the inferiority complex, I think, is also a part of it.
That's a little bit.
I hate to be a cynic, but that's it. And in those situations, you need to defend from the front. And Cristiano Ronaldo can do that for spurts, but he can't do it for an entire game. And I think that could be, we talk all about like finding the piece to be next to Ruben Dias, who's going to be that other center back, and who's going to be the right back, and how we're going to get that back line to coalesce, and what's going to be the midfield. My question is, man, if we want to be a pressing team, we're never going to be a pressing team with Cristiano Ronaldo. That's just a reality. He's vai queimar os cartuchos, as they say, cartuchos. I said that really badly, but he's just going to be. What is a cartucho? Is the shotgun? What is, not the bullet, but the
shell?
The shell with all the fragmented bullets inside or whatever.
Okay.
And so I'm just thinking, like, there is a situation here where I think that Cristiano Ronaldo is going to start all the games, and I think that Portugal could suffer if they're facing a superior opponent like a Spain, like a France, like potentially an Argentina or a Brazil or whatever. And I say superior loosely because they're superior in some things, but not others. And you're not able to counterpress these teams. And I know that in the international game, sitting back and absorbing and hitting in transition is a very effective mechanism to use. That's how France won the World Cup in 2000. Jesus. When did France in
18.
18. Oh my God. So I think that's one of the things that I'm concerned about. It's not necessarily him scoring a goal against these teams. It's what he does without the ball and what Portugal does without the ball. And so that's one of the biggest questions that I have facing this national team, more than who's going to partner Ruben Dias.
Okay. Eric, you are entitled to your opinion, buddy. And I will not. I'm kidding. No, listen, you bring up good points. It is similar to like, okay, who's gonna, like, we still don't know if Gonçalo Ramos is the guy that follows Ronaldo after Ronaldo's gone. Maybe he is that guy that can do the pressing one. A guy
Don't
who
have many other options.
A guy who unfortunately is no longer with us. Diogo Jota is a guy who had plenty of energy, who could press if need be. He is unfortunately no longer an option. So yeah, I mean, listen, one of the reasons why I bring you on here is because I absolutely value your opinion, and this does not have to be. I know I had to say that because we're at the end. But
we're not going to talk about Diogo Costa.
No, we're not. We're not. But I mean, I don't like to see Portugal in red and green lens glasses. I like to see it clearly. I sometimes get caught up in the emotion of it because I'm not a media guy. I'm just a guy who does a podcast, who is very passionate about what I feel about this national team, and I will go up and down on any opinion that I have on a player sometimes based on how the wind blows sometimes. But I appreciate that you come on and listen. If you were to come here and be like, what, I have quote unquote bashed him for a while, but now it's I'm all about it. Like, I'd be okay with that too, because guess what, Eric, we're human beings. We can change our opinions on things, and I
did change my opinion a little bit. He's accepted his role. That's a big thing, because I said he'd never accept his role.
See, look at you.
Yeah,
growing and stuff.
I just need the evidence. I'm an evidence-based guy in a post-fact world.
Boy, we could do another few hours about that.
Yeah.
I want to say this. We had mentioned, and I talked about it at the beginning here. This is episode 106. You first came on. I don't even know how. I don't know if I reached out to you. You reached out to me. Whatever the case was, but Jesus, episode 7 was the first time that we had had you on the podcast. But one of the reasons that, and I'm putting you on the spot here, so I do apologize. But one of the reasons why I became aware of you was Ray Hudson.
Oh, it wasn't my OnlyFans page?
One of the two reasons.
Yeah, there we go.
Now I have to edit this in post.
Yeah.
No, but it was Ray Hudson, and I know that you had worked with him at beIN for a little bit, and I know that he had a big impact on you. Being able to do what you have now been able to do, which is going from beIN to Apple to being with Charlotte to now your work with the NWSL. I know your big head soccer stuff was at the beginning of kind of like your journey here in the States as well. But I know that Ray had a big influence and big impact on you, and he recently retired from calling games and everything. And I know that you have a lot of love for Ray Hudson, as do a lot of people. Yeah.
Yeah. First of all, let me revisit something I told you at the beginning when I was talking about Carlos Ruiz, about not sort of admiring people. I take that back, because Ray Hudson, when I went to work for beIN, I knew who Ray Hudson was from commentary. And at the time, I had not that I didn't have an ambition to be a commentator. I just didn't think it was in the realm of reality. But Ray Hudson always caught my attention the way he's caught so many people's attention. His ability to bring games to life, his ability to be a wordsmith, the joy that he transmitted in his commentary made me really want to meet him. And when the first time I laid eyes on Ray Hudson in person, my first reaction was, damn, I didn't realize he was so tall. That was the first thing.
How tall is he?
He's 6 foot something. He's
tall. Like, just based on, that would, okay.
Because he's always sitting down when he's commentating, right? You don't see him standing around.
People do look shorter when they're sitting down. That's
they do. Yeah. Two, damn, that's a lot of cologne. And
Love smelling good.
yeah, and three, everybody in this office just lit up when he walked in because that's the kind of guy he is. He is just an awesome human being. So forget about just the commentary. His commentary is crazy. And what's interesting, people have asked me, is that who he is, the commentator? And I say yes, to a degree. He actually can be quite reserved, he's not a showman in person, but when he gets to know you, he's totally Ray. But now that you've brought this up, I want to just say something about him. I was hired by beIN Sports to be a producer. I had no experience as a producer. The fact that they hired me was crazy. My podcast, that's what it was. I had a podcast like yours. They brought me in because they felt, man, you got a knowledge of a lot of the leagues that we cover. You can come in and work on these shows. And it was just by a stroke of luck that I got put on the game because somebody called out and then they liked how I sounded and they gave me chances. But they only continued to give me chances because of people like Ray Hudson. Because Ray Hudson pushed for me to get chances when he first heard me. He said, you got to give this guy opportunities. He works hard. Because I used to work on his show with him as a AP. He works hard. And I will forever be thankful for that. In his departure interview with Sirius, he brought up Chris Winningham, who's one of the top U.S. commentators, a good friend of mine. In fact, the first person I ever did national TV with, a commentary with, was with Chris Winningham. He's at CBS. He's a fabulous commentator. And he was just lavishing Chris with praise because he's such a hard worker. So he is the first person to recognize people who deserve credit, and I say that deserve loosely, but put a lot of work into what they do. So for me, Ray Hudson isn't just an inspiration in the kind of work that he did, but also in the kind of person that he is. One who always looks out for the people he likes and respects. And I've always been somebody who's tried to look out for other people. And I've at some points in this career, to be completely honest with you, I'll probably regret saying all of this, but I've been told by other people in the business that I'm not cutthroat enough, that I've recommended people for opportunities, and people are like, why would you recommend this person for a job that you do? This could be competition. I don't know, man. I got lucky in being in the position that I am, so I'm going to reach out and try to help somebody if I think that they deserve it. You know what I mean? And that's who Ray was and is. That's who Ray is. He will try to help you if he can. So an incredible person. I'm so glad you brought him up. I'm really surprised that you did. And for those people who are not familiar with this commentary, I feel sorry for them because they won't get to hear him. But go on YouTube, man. I mean, the man.
Well,
Joy.
Let me tell you something, dude. You are no less than majestic, and and I would say that this episode
magisterial.
Yeah. Magisterial. God damn it, I have it right in front of me. And you are nothing less than stupefying Eric Krakauer.
Portuguese peach.
The Portuguese, o best português, absolutely. Eric Krakauer at Eric Krakauer on all the socials. Where can we find you next? Is and forgive my ignorance on this, but NWSL still going on? Is the season over? What are we doing?
Yeah, NWSL getting awfully close to the playoffs. The season is winding down. A few positions for grabs. It's a league that I really like. I watched games loosely, especially getting my daughter into it. So when I was asked to be a part of it, it was a privilege. I had to do a lot of homework, and I've fallen in love with the league. And it's growing by leaps and bounds. 2 more teams coming next year. And before I sign off, I just have to say one thing about Portugal.
Sure, bud.
Diogo Costa coming out for crosses is scary. Remember what happened against Morocco?
Yeah.
He's a wonderful goalkeeper. José Tavares, who's the technical director at FC Porto, is a friend of mine. Cannot speak more highly about Diogo Costa. But sometimes he's swatting at flies, and it concerns me. And he's a wonderful goalkeeper and a shot stopper. But he's still at Porto. And he's been linked with a lot of clubs. And I'm thinking, why is he still at Porto? Has somebody who's these goalkeeping experts who work for clubs and all that stuff, do they see things that I don't see because I'm not a goalkeeping expert that we perhaps don't see? Food for thought. He's still the Portuguese number one, although I love Rui Silva as well, even before he went to Sporting. But, food for thought, man. Food for thought.
Well, I was trying to get out of here on the positive, guys, but Eric hits me straight in the face with some reality. But
Vitinha is the positive. We didn't talk about him. Vitinha.
Listen, that was for the summer. He's old news. No,
yes, old news.
Listen, I always appreciate you coming on, man. All the best to you and your family. Continued success with the NWSL. I'll keep talking while you drink your water so I can get a nice response back. But no, honestly, man, all the best to you, man. I greatly, I greatly appreciate all the support you've given the pod over the years and being a part of so many fun episodes. And hopefully we'll get you on soon. And dude, who's Charlotte? If I'm not mistaken, is Charlotte a host city?
No, unfortunately.
Maybe
will be for the Women's World Cup a few years from now, but not for this World Cup.
All right. Well, hey, but hopefully we're in North America. Maybe we run into each other somewhere. Maybe you and I, quick little trip to Mexico if it goes that way for the national team. I have family up in Toronto. I have family up in Toronto. We could do something there. But all that to say is I can't wait to have you on next time, man. And always appreciate you coming on and all the support you give the pod.
Always a pleasure. Love listening to the pod. I like to listen to everybody's opinion about the Portuguese.
You'll love this episode, I guarantee it.
To all the listeners out there, I'm just being honest. It doesn't mean I'm right.
That's a hell of a way to end it. All right, guys. That'll do it for episode number 106 of the Seleção podcast. We are a proud partner of Portugal.net. Again, my thanks to Eric Krakauer for joining us. And as always, Força Portugal!